Hello, hello. Welcome to Healthy Perspectives, a podcast that takes on current cultural and social issues through a clinical lens. Hello, hello. All right. Welcome back. Thank you for so much. I'm starting off with a bang. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are brand new, we appreciate you spending some of your minutes with us. We know that there's a lot of options out there, and our goal here is to improve people's lives with whatever means we can. And this podcast is one of those means. So today we are going to be talking about divorce. I know I said it's a rough word, folks. I'm going to go through a list of things that I have learned. I came up with, as I was just jotting some notes down, I came up with 7 things pretty much right off of the bat that are very, very common in couples work that I just want to address today. So your tip of the day is your word is your most valuable asset. I was once told that we are only as valuable as our word. And I was like, well, okay, put that in perspective. You know, you go to get a home loan, and let's say you pay off that home loan, then you have all these really big assets, a house, right? Maybe a car, maybe a couple of cars, maybe some tools, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of assets that could be built. Yeah, but that home loan that you got, you realize at some point you signed on a dotted line that I will commit to paying this much money at this rate over this period of time. And if I do, then the house will be mine. And what happens if you don't? If you don't stick to your word, well, then the house becomes not yours. At some point, they come in and they take it from you. Okay? Well, you are only as good as your word. Translate that. Your word is your most valuable asset. And what does that have to do with divorce? If you got married, somewhere in there, you made a commitment. Your commitment was, I will stand by you through it all. I will be faithful to you through it all. Now, I know there's a lot of reasons why people get divorced, and I could get into all of those reasons. Matter of fact, let's digress. I wasn't going to do this, but let's do this. When a divorce is a good option, how do we know that? How do we determine when it is a good option? There's really very few good options when it comes to divorce. Divorce is just ugly in every way. I've walked with people who have fought through and not gotten divorced. That's hard. I've walked through with people who have gotten a divorce. That's hard. You're going to do hard things either way. That's just a reality. The question is, when is it best to get a divorce? And there's very few times that that's actually probably the best. Now, I'm not saying that just because I'm a Christian, although that does taint some things for me a little bit, right? We're supposed to fight for the relationship. You know, love up close, love at a distance. There are some times that I, as a counselor, have determined for my own self, not for the couple. I let them determine the timing, the how, the when, all that stuff, because I don't take their autonomy away. That's not my place. But I have had situations where I'm like, right, this is probably the end. This is probably the best. I'll give you some examples. If there's abuse, physical abuse, probably a good one to have a divorce. Yep, get out of that. That's not okay. That is somebody who is not protecting you. They are harming you. Okay. Now it gets a little trickier, but say like emotional abuse. That's a lot trickier because It's a lot. Well, one is it's a lot easier to deceive somebody and say, but I didn't mean to. There's no bruises left behind, but there is a brokenness in some of those situations. That is an appropriate time for a divorce. Look, even in the Christian faith, you weren't meant to be a punching bag. That is not how it works, even in the Christian faith. And set that aside for a moment and just say, in life, regardless of your religious belief, you should not be a punching bag. That's what makes things like war so difficult, because that kind of stuff happens, and there are bad people who enter those arenas. Take one more step beyond that. I want to tell you, like, one of the things when I was 17 and I went into the Marine Corps, one of the things that I quickly learned was that people would question why I went into the military. They'd say, well, why did you go into the Marine Corps? I mean, you might have to shoot somebody or kill somebody or stab somebody or one of these things. And I said, that's true. Unfortunately, that's true. And why did I do it? Here's something to ponder. Would you rather good people be in those tough situations? People who have moral foundations, who understand that taking a life, no matter whose life it is, no matter how evil their actions are, is a hard thing to do, and it should remain a hard thing to do? Or would you rather to send in only the most difficult, heinous, horrible, evil people that you could find? Think about that. They represent us. They represent you and me. As hard as it is, I would rather put the good people in those hard situations, because they will make the right decisions, the healthiest decision in the midst of chaos, far more often. Okay, that was a sidestep. But sometimes the point is, divorce is a good option. When is it a bad option? Pretty much any other time. Okay, you could give me your feedback. You can say, hey, what about in a situation like this? Should a divorce be an option? I'd be happy to talk with you about it. But understand, there are times that it is a good option. All right. So let me tell you the list of things that I have learned. There's 7 of them in no particular order. Like, I just sat down and I just wrote them down. Okay. One of the things is most divorces start before the marriage begins. Somewhere in there, it is determined that, oh, we can get married, and if it doesn't work out, we could always get a divorce. They don't take that off the table from the beginning. And that's a mistake. If you're going to commit to somebody your entire life, you got to take divorce off the table. Again, excluding some development of abuse, you got to take it off the table. It's the only way to give the relationship, the marriage, a chance. All right, number 2, betrayal of truth, authenticity, and transparency is more significant than the betrayal of your spouse. Whoa. Let me say that again. The betrayal of truth, authenticity, and transparency is more significant than the betrayal of your spouse. Look, when you go back on your word, remember, it's the most valuable asset you have. When you go back on that, you become somebody that is not trustworthy. That'll tear a relationship apart faster than anything else. That's why you may ask, well, why do some people have infidelity, and somehow they figure out how to work through it. Usually it's because the betrayal of truth, authenticity, and transparency, that part gets solved. That's how it gets done. They resolve the truth, authenticity, and transparency pieces. And then all of a sudden, forgiveness is right around the corner. And it doesn't mean forget. Forgiveness doesn't mean forget. But it does mean forgiveness is right around the corner. As soon as a person creates a congruent truth, authenticity, and transparency model, one where they say it and they live it, they become more believable. That's just the way it is. Number 3, once a divorce is stated as an option, it's easier and easier to return to that option. So take it off the table from the beginning. That kind of ties to that first one, what I was talking about. You got to take it off the table. It is not an option, minus these certain circumstances, right? My wife and I, if she goes out and has an affair, she's out. If I go out and have an affair, I'm out. We've known that since the beginning. There are certain deal breakers that are known from the beginning. And if they're not known, you better go make them known. Like, here is a deal breaker for me. If this happens, if you hit me in violence, not on accident, like bump, oops, okay, I'm getting a divorce. No, don't like, no, it's got to be like, you got to be explicit, clear of what your no, not evers are. This is a no, not ever for me. And there, every couple has different ones. Some people are, if you ever yell at me in a public space, you will have broken my ability to trust you. And I don't think you could get it back. Okay. You got to label your no, not evers. Make them known. Okay. Number 4, communication breaks down whenever your spouse becomes your enemy. Ooh. Your spouse is your ally. If you start to believe that your spouse is the enemy, if they are the place that I have to protect myself from, y'all better figure that out. And earlier is better, because your spouse is your ally. They should be your greatest ally. They should be doing what they can to hoist you up, lift you up, prop you up, make you stronger, make you better. And if they're not doing that, then you need to have a conversation with them, because that is a slippery slope. Because communication starts to break down as soon as you start to see them as your enemy. You cannot make it long-term if you see your spouse as an enemy. They cannot be that. Okay, number 5, couples don't understand the emotional life cycle, and they don't intentionally create space for it. So the emotional life cycle, I've probably done this in other podcasts. I'd have to go back and look. Most likely I have. I put a lot of these out there. The emotional life cycle is when you interact with the environment around you. You have 5 senses. Your senses pick up something. That's information. Boom. The birth of emotion. You have a response. You probably heard me talk about pentapus tentacles. Go back and listen. Emotional life cycle. It's probably in there somewhere. When that happens, we have the birth of an emotion. The emotion lasts for a length of time, sometimes seconds, sometimes minutes. During that emotion, we have to engage our thinking, our thoughts, to think about the emotion, think about the issue, that spot where we smacked into the environment, the world around us, and think about our history. Why does this feel this way? What is this feeling? Is it familiar or is it brand new? So we think about those three things: the issue, the emotion itself, and our history, other places where we may have encountered this emotion. Okay. Once we do that, then we take that information, the emotional information and the thoughtful information. And if we have embedded some good morality in our past, we pull that up as part of our history. And then we make a decision, a behavior, an action comes out of that. Couples don't get that. And the ones who are smart enough to get it, that I see in my clinical office, often don't make space for others to go through them in their time. See, some people can get to the thinking part and they're really fast. Some people get to the thinking part and they're much slower. They might need 10 minutes instead of a minute. Nothing wrong with that. Couples have to negotiate that space so that we can live through that emotional life cycle and come to the table reasonably. And a lot of couples don't do that. They got to make space for it. Number 6, tabling topics. Kind of goes hand in hand with the last one. How do you table a topic or call a timeout? Like it's no different than in sports. When we call a timeout, one team calls the timeout. Does it matter which one it is? Absolutely not. Whoever calls the timeout gets the timeout. Now, in sports, there's some exceptions, but we're not in sports. We're in life. If your spouse calls a timeout, it doesn't matter what it's for. They need a timeout, but there's some expectations around calling a timeout. Anybody can call it. There's some responsibilities that go with the person who calls it. Even if I call it for my wife, I am responsible for these next pieces. Number 1, I have to give a designated time that I think will reasonably be able to return. Hey, let's come back to this in an hour. Let's come back to this in 5 minutes. I need a couple of minutes to figure it out. Let's come back to this in 24 hours. Now, the further you kick it down the road, the less likely you are to come back to it. So the person who calls the timeout is also responsible for reconvening the conversation. Tabling topics, very generic, very simple to understand, and yet so many couples I deal with do not know how to do that well. They call a timeout and they're supposed to say, I'm not ready for a timeout. We're going to talk about this. You can't do that. That level of disrespect creates a different kind of trust issue. They call a timeout, take the timeout. You can be frustrated about it. You can be angry about it. You can go journal all those frustrations and angers. You can go do 20 push-ups. You can, like, whatever it is you got to do that's reasonable. What you can't do during a timeout is run away. It's another rule. You can't do it. You do that, then the spouse is sit there wondering, are they going to come back? And if you are going to create some caveat in there where you can go and take some space, you got to be real specific. Like, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm not going to take the car, because if I take the car, I can go really far. Or maybe I go, and this is where people with individual issues can have problems. They go and they drink, they go and they gamble, they go and they, whatever, they do something that is unhealthy. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go through the neighborhood. It's about a 15-minute walk. I will come back and I will check in 15 minutes, something like that. You guys can negotiate that, but whatever it is, it has to be respectful, because that's what you do when you table a topic. Okay. The 7th part, the last one I have on my list of things I've learned from doing couples work. Homes that are unsafe environmentally, relationally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Homes that are unsafe in those realms cannot be safe for the individual. And those homes that are safe in those realms don't happen by magic. There is no magic trick. They are intentionally made by two people committed to making it safe. So if you have an issue feeling safe in your own home, if you don't feel like home is the place you want to go at the end of every day, then you and your spouse, your partner, your person have got to figure that out. Because a home that's not safe cannot have individuals that feel safe within it. You got to go about making it safe. Again, one more time for that list. The environment itself has to be safe. Wake up, hoarders. You collectors of things that get way too much. You got to make it safe for other people. You got to make it a safe relationship. It's got to be a place where if you get home and you've had a stressful day and you say, hey, look, I love you. I need a few minutes. It was a rough day. That the relationship can handle that. Because they're going to say, okay, is there anything I can do for you? Or you got it. You got space. Go take your space. Do your thing. Like the relationship has to be safe. Physically, you have to be safe. That could key into the environment, that could key into the relationship, that there's a lot of areas of physical safety that could be considered there. But you got to feel physically safe. If you can't sleep at night because you don't feel physically safe, then you're going to have elevated emotion. You're going to have an easier time seeing your spouse as your enemy instead of your ally. Like everything falls apart. It's got to be safe. Emotionally, it's got to be safe. And spiritually, it's got to be safe. If you have different belief structures, I've seen people navigate that. And they do it successfully by communicating effectively where their needs are. If you're not doing that, if you're not being clear, you are not being kind, as Brene Brown would say. There's no magic trick to creating safety in a home. There's no magic trick to it. It's made intentionally by people who try to make it safe. And when it becomes unsafe, people who want a safe environment, who want a safe relationship, and want it to be emotionally and physically and spiritually safe, people, when they encounter challenges in those situations and they want those things, what they do is they immediately try to regain safety. Because things do happen. It can happen. You know, you could go into your yard and step on a ground hornet nest. Done that. Did not feel super safe going through the tall grass after that for a little bit. And then I went and I took care of them. So now I feel safe again. Right? I didn't just ignore it and go, okay, I can't go there. Because then, you know, if that happens, you're going to start to feel, things happen in every location. So you can't go upstairs anymore because you stubbed your toe on a stair. Well, now you can't go by the couch anymore because one time you went to sit down and it moved and, you know, you spilled your soda all over yourself. Or like, look, folks, you got to make it safe again. It's the only option. Let's go ahead and circle all the way back in conclusion. I started off with the big word, divorce. And then I told you your word is your most valuable asset. And many of you might not have thought that that was going to tie directly to it. But let's be real. Now that you've heard the things that I've learned from doing couples work, I hope you see the connection there. Your word. And when I say your word, let me clarify something. Probably should have done this at the beginning. When I say your word, I mean not just your words out of your mouth, your word, what you say you stand for, although that's a big part of it. I'm talking about the whole combination, your verbals, words, your nonverbals, your behaviors, and your paraverbals, your tone, volume, and cadence. Your word is your greatest asset. And when you line them all up, and your actions and your paraverbals and your verbals all say the same thing. And that is, I am safe. I am trustworthy. I am flawed. and I am willing to grow. When it's saying stuff like that, shoot, I mean, you're going to have a fantastic relationship, or somebody will have a fantastic relationship with you at least. Because there's a lot of good that comes out of truth, authenticity, transparency in our processes. Look, folks, I don't always talk about these hard topics that are more personal to you. I tend to talk about some more cultural things. But the reason I wanted to talk about this today, one, because I see it's just it's punching people in the gut right now. Like it's a big topic in a lot of people's worlds at the moment. Kind of always seems to be, but really intense right now, at least where I'm at. And I wanted you to have this information. But the other thing is the culture that we live in right now doesn't teach these things. Not well, if it teaches them at all. Our culture right now makes it, honestly, very easy to go down the divorce path. But understand, and this isn't a passing of judgment on anybody who has gotten a divorce. I know the caveats. I have seen those situations where it is necessary. But a lot of people who go and get divorces, what it tells me is more about their character. Not always. There are those exceptions, and I always leave space for that being a possibility. But if you're selfish, if you are unwilling to work with somebody, if you are abusive, I mean, those are choices you're making. And you can make them. And you can pay the price for them. Our world is telling you you can just start over. You can just that's what our world tells you. And the truth is, one thing you can't start over with is the value of your word. If you made a full commitment and you bailed for anything other than a really, really big reason, then your word doesn't mean that much. And that's sad to me. Our culture won't confront that directly. They won't say, you get divorced, you go back on your word. It'll say, well, what were the exceptional reasons? Well, they had the toilet paper the wrong direction over and over. And eventually I just saw that as disrespect. And maybe it was. Maybe that was a form of abuse. But most likely it's not. And most likely that would be you creating a narrative that you want. This is a hard topic. And it shouldn't be made to be an easy topic. Full commitment is very important. Take it seriously. And I look forward to your questions that you might have for me. You can email them. You can get on social media. There's several different options. There's links in the podcast. You can go in and find ways to communicate with me. And if I don't respond on one, go to another, because keeping up with all of it can be difficult for the team. And we do our best to try to be responsive, but don't give up easily. I appreciate you coming. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. We appreciate our audience a lot, so we give you some simple ways to track us down. Please like, subscribe, and follow all the podcasts on different platforms, but you can also email us at healthyperspectives@protonmail.com, or you can check out our website at healthy-perspectives.com/podcast. It's a backward slash. So if you want to go to our landing page, if you go to healthy-perspectives.com, you'll still find us. You just got to click on the podcast button. Thank you so much.